Welcome back to the Sports on the Bay podcast, where we highlight the people, programs, and ideas shaping youth sports and active families right here in our community. Today's episode is part of our program Spotlight series, where we take a deeper look inside local programs helping develop athletes across Anne Arundel County and beyond. Today, we are joined by Mike Mollot. Mike had an incredible playing career at the University of Maryland as a three-time All-American, team captain, and one of the top scorers in program history. He also spent 5 years playing professionally and now brings more than 15 years of coaching experience into the youth game. Today, we're talking all things Team 91 Annapolis Lacrosse, player development, coaching philosophy, culture, expectations for families, and what makes this program unique in a very competitive lacrosse landscape. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I appreciate it, Hope. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and the introduction. I think you just made me feel a lot older than I already feel. But anyhow, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
We're really glad to have you here. I know a lot of families are interested in this program and want to know more. So I'd love to start by helping families understand the bigger picture of the program, how you got into this role, and how it all came together for Team 91 Annapolis.
Yeah, so I'll just talk, for starters. Team 91 Lacrosse has been around for a long time. It's probably the most recognizable club lacrosse brand in the ecosystem. It started in Long Island, ironically, with a guy I played with, Brian Spallina, professionally. But we're up to, I think it's 16 regions. We go as far as Arizona and Colorado, all up the East Coast, from New York down to Georgia, down to North Carolina. And the Annapolis region is new to the region. I am the director and co-founder of that. Most people would refer to me probably as a lax junkie. Lacrosse has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. My father was a high school teacher, football coach, lacrosse coach, has over 350 wins on Long Island. My wife was a four-time national champion at Maryland. So I've been around the game my whole life. My oldest son is just graduated high school. He's going to Maryland next year. And I coached his rec teams with AYLA and Davidsonville. And then as in second, third grade, he started getting the club lacrosse, and I coached that team with Brendan Gale, who was me and him were thick as thieves, and he coaches our 32 team now. But I coached that team from third grade through high school, through college commitments. I was with a different organization then. People had pursued me over the years about trying to do my own thing, and the timing just wasn't right. But in the last year or two, several organizations more seriously started approaching it with me, and the timing felt right. I love coaching, coach a teacher at heart, probably what I should have done out of college, but I'm doing it now later in life. So I'm really excited about what we're building and what we're trying to provide families.
Absolutely. So one thing we noticed is some of the programs, especially the newer ones that are coming to the area, were filling a gap or a need that maybe, there are a lot of lacrosse organizations in this area.
Absolutely.
It's obviously dense and plenty to pick from, but what sets you apart from maybe some of the other ones in the area?
Yeah, I would say, and probably a term I'll use a few times here, is authenticity. I'm trying to be authentic. I am not a perfect human being. Our coaches aren't perfect. My kids aren't perfect. Our families don't need to be perfect. But listen, club sports in general, it's an intense world out there. I often tell people, though, society's different now. My wife and I, we push our kids academically probably harder than my parents pushed us. Club lacrosse, it can be intense at times. But where I feel like, and based on my experience with where I was and towards the end of the tenure, a lot of programs can be transactional, and that is not who we want to be. We're not a nonprofit. It is my livelihood, but we're trying to provide real value to families. And ultimately, we want to be authentic to relationships and the experiences that we all got out of youth sports. And oftentimes, are overlooked these days. So we're trying to provide, obviously, development for the players, because that's why they're there. But not everyone's going to go on to play college lacrosse or maybe high school lacrosse, and we want to make sure we're providing good culture, authentic relationships. We're not trying to just collect a check. Some programs are, and real life experiences that kids can take with them into adult life.
Absolutely. One thing that your program does a really great job of is obviously you have your club teams. That's an aspect of it, but you do offer a few other developmental opportunities for kids
Sure.
to not only maybe just get an experience with your organization and get a feel for how you operate, but can you talk a little bit more about you have an anchor series, I
Yep.
believe, you offer clinics. Maybe you could just share some of those different opportunities available to families.
Yeah, sure. Just on the club side, so we'll have tryouts which in early July, 6th and 7th, and we'll offer everything from 2028, which is rising juniors, through 2037, which is rising second graders. But as you alluded to, on top of that, we had two big, so it was Anchor Academy, which this year was really focused on the winter, indoor off-season training, which was open to the public. It wasn't just our families. We did
Hmm.
that on the girls and the boys side. The boys side was co-run by myself, more focused on the offense, and Jesse Bernhardt, the associate head coach at Maryland. So we did that. That was in November, December. We offered a little bit more in January. And on the girls' side, that was run again by myself offensively, and Lori Kennis, the longtime associate head coach for the Maryland women's team, on the defensive side. That was super well received. Again, that was open to the public, but we think we got a lot of value. We got a lot of great feedback on that. We'll do that again. We're going to grow from that and do some summer offerings as well. But for this year, we were more focused on the winter. And then the Anchor Series, as you alluded to, that's more of an introduction to the program, younger first, second, and third graders. If it's for a kid who's maybe trying to get a little bit more lacrosse in and then what they're experiencing with their rec program, or a family who's not ready to maybe step all the way in the club. We offered that in we did a fall season, a winter season, and a spring season. I was at every one of the sessions but one. So I was hands-on running
Hmm.
them with other coaches. Some families signed up for the year package and some did seasonal, but that got very good reviews. And we're looking forward to growing some of those offerings as well.
Yeah, that's great. When you do those anchor series where it's a mix of ages, are the kids all together or are you breaking them up if you have more beginners versus more experienced players?
Yeah, we tried to break them up a little bit, less to do with age and more to do with skills. We tried to put them in groups similar skill.
Hmm.
It was very introductionary, and again, we tried to tailor it. We did a lot of station work, but one group was kids that were maybe a little bit more experienced, had better stick work, whatever it was. We tried to challenge them a little more. But ultimately, the group worked together, but we tried to station them off a little bit by skill ability as well. But again, it was there was less third graders there. It was more the first and second graders. But we did a good job of managing everything.
Yeah.
It's not overly kids out there whacking each other and hitting.
Hmm.
So, but we did try to tailor as best we could to the kids' individual.
Okay. Yeah, great. That's helpful. So not everyone has a history of lacrosse. I grew up in Wisconsin. I didn't even know what lacrosse was really till I probably moved out here. And so there are a lot of families new to the sport who maybe are
Sure.
in a similar position. When we look at your club teams, what does an annual calendar look like from training? You don't have to get too specific into tournaments, but just general timing and then to off-season work.
Yeah, so I would say it's pretty typical of most club teams, and I would first like to say we believe in multi-sport athletes. So we want families to play multiple sports. Lacrosse ultimately is a spring season sport, and then combined with the club schedule, it's a summer. So what we tell our families is we don't expect families to miss fall or winter stuff for their in-season sports. If you're available, you should be there, because if you're not, the other kids are developing. But
Hmm.
then really, once the spring and summer kicks in, that's when we better be the priority. We expect to be the priority. If you
Hmm.
have any kids who play travel soccer, I know that's a challenging schedule to manage. But our season typically is the fall. We'll practice once a week, usually Sunday mornings for September and October. Most teams, depending on the age, are playing 2 or 3 tournaments. You're done by the second, the third week in November, the latest.
Hmm.
Then we offer the Anchor Academy in the winter months. The teams will pick back up in January and practice again once a week in January and February on Sundays. At that point, our high school teams, they're done at the end of November until their high school season's over. So pretty much from December through May, they're really focused with their high school team. But our youth and middle school teams, again, like I said, they'll pick back up in January and February. And then the real spring season really kicks in towards the last week in February, where depending on the age, you'll practice 2, maybe 3 times a week. Our middle school teams, they play in the Howard County. All the club teams around here play in that spring league. And then we'll take off. That typically ends a week before Memorial Day. We'll take off a week and a half, and our teams are getting back. Our summer starts this weekend,
Hmm.
this week,
Okay.
excuse me, essentially, which I don't know when this airs, the last weekend. in May, including our high school teams. And at that point, they'll practice twice a week, depending on the age, either 3 or 4 summer tournaments. Most teams are done by the end of June. Some of the older teams will go a little bit into that second week of July, but that's generally the typical season for our club teams.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So one thing that we talk a lot about is player development, and every club and every sport generally does it a little bit differently.
Yep,
I can say for where my son plays soccer, they focus a lot on individual development. And so, can you talk a little bit about your practice
sure.
dynamics and where you're developing program or you're developing players at different age levels and how that might look different from when they're younger to older? Just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, there's two things I would say on that front. I guess we're trying to be authentic, and I know I'm only as good as our coaches. And I would say last year at our tryouts, for example, we could have had 2 more age groups based on numbers that registered. We just weren't in a place where I felt great about our coaches at that point.
Hmm.
We feel excellent going into this summer, but we ended up not offering that. So we're not going to roll teams out. I know other programs, there are some that might collect a check before the if we don't have strong coaching in place, we're not looking to we don't want to mislead families.
Hmm.
So from the development standpoint, though, I am a firm believer in fundamentals. So all of our teams, obviously, as we get older, there's more scheme, but whether it's lacrosse, no matter what sport it is, when you face adversity on the field, you have to fall back to your fundamentals. So we're a firm believer in fundamentals. Our practice structure, I pride myself. I coach 2 of the teams, but I'm at a lot of our practices. I'm a resource to our coaches. We also are adding this summer a player and coach development director. So he'll be there to support them. But ultimately, our practices, you can expect well organized beforehand, high rep, high touches, super competitive. Ultimately, we want our kids leaving a little sweaty. We want them working hard and embracing
Hmm.
hard work. But we're a firm believer in fundamentals, improving stick work, control the controllables. So we will always fall back on strong fundamentals more than we will having better X's and O's than the other team, because ultimately lacrosse is not football, although there's a lot of coaches that try to coach it like that. So lacrosse is a player's game, and we have to develop them to learn how to play the game, and it starts with strong fundamentals.
Yeah, exactly. So touching on the coach piece a little bit, you guys, I perused your website a little bit, and
Yep,
you have a pretty strong coaching staff. What backgrounds, experiences are most of your coaches? Do they have, and are they parents of the? I
sure,
mean, there's paid coaching
sure.
organizations and there's parent coaching organizations, and what are the dynamics there?
Yeah, and I will just say, just touch on is later this month we'll announce the whole staff for summer tryouts.
Okay.
That'll come out. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, please do. But yeah, our coaches, I pride ourselves in our coaches and our ability to attract very strong paid coaches and dad coaches. We have a great mixture of both. Some programs out there might try to tout that they have only paid coaches. I had the luxury of coaching my oldest son from 3rd to 12th grade, so I've got to experience both sides of it, the paid coach. And you need a strong mixture of both. You just do. And I firmly believe we have a great staff and super excited about who our staff's going to be this summer moving forward. But we have coaches from former All-Americans to current high school coaches to kids that younger men in their late 20s that have a strong passion for the game and trying to help develop. So we have a wide variety of coaches, but I would put our coaches up with anybody in the air, and I'm super excited about some of the coaching announcements we're going to have later this month.
It's great. Well, we will definitely share that on our page as well. So one thing that is helpful to a lot of families within the lacrosse world already, and also those who are just starting to get into it, is understanding different pathways. And I want to start at the very beginning because this seems to be a topic that I hear as a parent in the county generally is, well, my kid didn't pick up a stick in pre-K or kindergarten, and so I'm not even gonna try to put them in a lacrosse program at first or second grade because they're already behind. Or I was in a lacrosse program and they didn't make the team, and now what do we do? Where do we go back to rec? Are they not good enough? And so I feel like that is a pretty common conversation I hear across the board. And I'm just curious, if someone is joining early, what does that progression look like in your program? But also, it's not too late to play a sport or start a sport at first, second, or third grade.
No, I mean, no, not at all. That's again just it's the world we live in now.
Hmm.
I would encourage families to foster an environment where their kid enjoys playing lacrosse and love playing lacrosse. And whether that's on the most competitive club team in the area or not, that's okay at the younger ages. If they
Hmm.
desire a passion for the game, my older son, Brady, who's a 5-star recruit, he's the player he is because he loves the game and ultimately what he does on his own. It's not to say that he hasn't been impacted everywhere else, but he never would have got to the level he's at right now if he didn't love the game and he wasn't committing the time that he does on his own. I told you I used to coach my previous team I coached, and I'll tell all the families this at tryouts. Tryouts are not a perfect process. We're going to make mistakes. Kids get nervous. They might not show their best. That 48 hours doesn't define who a kid's going to be. It also doesn't mean that the third grader is going to be the best player in 10th grade, right? Puberty is a once puberty kicks in middle school, that's the ultimate equalizer. So I would just be careful selling your kid short on those things. What I would encourage families is it's hard as a coach to coach, compete, toughness, and effort. If your kid's doing that, I can assure you they have a home at 91 Annapolis.
Hmm.
We can develop skills. That's what our job is. We can develop stick work, field awareness. But if the kid doesn't love the game and he's not there competing and having fun with his friends, that's where it's challenging to coach. And the other thing I would just leave with the story is it was 7th grade. Brendan and I, Gail, our 32 coach, we had tryouts. There was a particular player where we weren't sure. We ended up not offering him. We spoke to the family, and the dad said he'll be at tryouts again next year. That motivated him. Well, he
Hmm.
made the team next year and became a strong player for us. And I share that story because I look at that as a life lesson. We made the wrong decision. We made the wrong assessment. But ultimately, that kid took that experience and it drove him to work even harder. And a year later, he was better for it and we were better for it. So I would just caution families to be too reactionary to those
Hmm.
early years. And really, it's just get your kid to love the sport, to work hard, embrace those things. And then when puberty kicks in is when you really find out a lot about who the player is going to become.
I love that. And if we take this one step further and look at some of the kids who have been in programs for a while, and I'm not entirely familiar with this, but I'll just use soccer as an example. There's a lot
Sure.
of ECNL is the
Yep.
pathway, and there's only so many programs in the area that offer that. And so maybe you can talk a little bit from the lacrosse side, what sets you apart from that pathway, but also I assume that there's showcases that colleges come take a look at players.
Yeah. I have 3 core principles on any team I've coached and who our club follows, and it's be a good teammate on and off the field. It's compete your butt off, and it's have fun. But winning is fun. So
Hmm.
we want competitive teams, and we're going to try to put the most competitive teams we can put out there. But in the same breath, we don't have this massive ego where we need to put teams in a certain division that they shouldn't be in. So we're going to put teams in the appropriate division. Now, that said, again, 91 is probably the strongest lacrosse brand nationwide.
Hmm.
Our access to events is we have no prohibit. There's nothing that's stopping us from getting in certain events. There are events for some clubs they can't get in. The probably most prestigious event is the NLF, National Lacrosse Federation. 91 is a co-owner of that. So we have access to all the right tournaments. It's a little different than soccer and that. And we can get the kids the exposure when they get to high school that they need. And ultimately, we're going to put them in an environment with our staff that gives them great opportunity to develop and be seen by college coaches. The 91 family, I think I don't know the exact number, but it's over 2,000 college commits between their programs. So we have the resources there. I'm directly involved with our college recruiting, and we're bringing someone on staff this summer that's going to also aid in that. So I have the unique experience where, as I've said a few times, I coached that team from 3rd grade through high school, and our
Hmm.
high school team had 27 college commits to it. And I was very, very intimately involved with all those families and helping support them. So, from a development standpoint, our access is we're in a good place, and families will be, the families that are part of us now and the families that will join us, they'll be thrilled with the experience that their exposure their son gets.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, before we wrap up, I want to make sure we recognize the tryouts that are coming up
Yep.
because they're just around the corner. Can you talk the
Sure.
dates, location, where that will be held, and if you can just do a brief age
Yep.
range, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so again, we'll be offering from 2028 through 2037. 2028 is Rising Juniors, 2037 is Rising Second Grade. So in between that gamut, we'll be offering teams. Our tryouts are July 6th and 7th. That's the Monday and Tuesday after 4th of July. We're doing a morning tryout. It's a little bit different, but we feel strongly about that. So more specifics on exact time range and all that for the age specific, that'll be released in the next few weeks. But ultimately, the tryouts will occur between 8 and 12. Our tryouts are at Liberty Sportsplex. I'm getting ahead of this now because I know how this works. That is not our practice facility, but ultimately that's a great facility for tryouts. It could support the number of fields we have. The field layout is great, so we're holding tryouts there, but that is not a practice facility. But that's where our tryouts were. All this information is available on our Instagram account, our website. But yeah, we're super excited about our tryouts. And I would also add, and we'll announce this on Instagram at some point, probably in 2 weeks or so later in June, I'll host
Hmm.
a Get to Know Us, a Zoom for the public. So for anyone who's interested, feel free to join that and just provide families the opportunity to learn more about myself, what we're trying to build here, our culture, and our.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, we always like ending with something personal because so much of youth sports stays with us long after the game's over. What is one thing from your childhood sports experience that sticks with you today?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just one thing, and maybe this isn't my childhood, but I guess I would go back to a couple weeks ago. My oldest son, was playing at McDonough.
Hmm.
They unfortunately lost that game. They shouldn't have, but they did. And one of my former teammates' fathers was there to watch him. And I was sitting with my younger son, Reed, and he came up and was talking with us. And he had a son who played with me at Maryland and a son, very good player from Hopkins. And he randomly brought up to Reed how I was one of his son's favorite teammates of all time.
Hmm.
And it just was meaningful to me because I'm not a perfect human being, but my wife and I, and what we're trying to do with this club program, we believe in being a good team. And I mentioned that earlier. It's one of our three pillars.
Hmm.
So just hearing that, and for my son to hear that, I don't know, it was nice because ultimately not every kid's going to go on to play college lacrosse. They might not play high school lacrosse.
Hmm.
But we want kids to get real life experiences from that. And there's no more real life experience than being part of a team.
Hmm.
And that's what we're trying to foster here. So to hear a former teammate's parent share that with my son, it was meaningful, and it just reinforced that we're doing it the right way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us and give families a deeper look into Team 91 Annapolis and your approach to player development and coaching. I think conversations like these are really valuable because they help parents better understand the people and the philosophy behind the programs that their kids are involved in. Thank you so much for joining us on the Sports on the Bay podcast. And thank you to everyone listening and continuing to support local sports and active families right here in Anne Arundel County. We will see you next time. Thank you, Mike.